So, okay, maybe people only call us into places where there are problems. I think there is an element of that. But also, you can't find out all of it on a couple of days audit. And even I wouldn't say that we always find out everything. So I think it's probably a fairly fair representation of what's going on in supply chains around the world. You've seen there what workers are concerned about, and I think it maps fairly closely onto the ETI-based code. We found 78% of workers are working more than the legal limits. 13% of sites globally were working more than 350 hours a month. That's 12 hours a day, every day of the month with no days off. In China, that was 24% of our visits where that was the case. We've talked about failure to pay the minimum wage. 70% of sites failure to pay proper premiums for overtime. And the amount of harsh treatment is also quite shocking. 36% of the sites we visited had harsh, inhumane treatment. One very interesting thing, though, is in the age we live in with a globally mobile workforce, those problems are much worse where you have a workforce that speaks a different language from the supervisors. When that's the case, it's 65% of sites that there is shouting, bullying, harsh treatment, and abuse. As Tony says, the killer fact, though, is at sites where there is a trade union, where that trade union would be categorised as independent, democratic and free, and where workers themselves say that the union is representing their views to management, there were no instances of child labour, no instances of fines, no instances of failure to pay the minimum wage, no instances of failure to pay overtime premiums, and no instances of harsh treatment. But I should say that out of the 129 sites, was it, we visited, that was only 8 sites. And I think there is an enormous need for us all to work together to try and improve that penetration. And in fact, I said to a corporate client the other day that your best mode of risk management for your supply base is to promote freedom of association and penetration of trade unions, which is an unusual way of looking at it. On a brighter note, though, let's just think about China for a moment, where obviously freedom of association, in the way that we would understand it, is against the law. But as you know, there have been a lot of corporate efforts to promote health and safety committees, worker committees, things like that, as a kind of gentle way of getting the workers' voices to management. And interestingly, we found that in the sites that did have those health and safety committees, conditions were better. Not perfect, but better. So I think that's a big endorsement for people who are trying to promote that kind of activity. So, it's not a question of rotten apples, it's a big problem. Yes, it's partly because of purchasing practices. Yes, it's partly because of the supply base's lack of technical knowledge on things like fostering freedom of association, managing productivity, managing human resources. But it's also about massive government failures to enforce legislation, and also about very, very uneven social and economic development around the world, which is partly driving this tremendous migration that we're seeing globally. So what do? We work together, we try and sort it out. This report is called Progress, Not Perfection. I was talking somewhere else the other day and we were talking about the living wage. And there's always that debate about the living wage, but how big is it? How much is it? What method do you use? What I'd say is more would be better. I think that much is clear. So maybe we should have called this report More Would Be Better. I don't know. Well, actually 56 pages, less would have been better. The report also, half of it, outlines some stuff that we've been involved in, some of which has slightly worked. Not completely, but a bit. On migrant labour, looking in the UK with the Temporary Labour Working Group, many of you I know were active participants in that, but also looking in Malaysia and looking at the use of labour providers there. On worker representation in China, on overtime, on wages, on working together to share data. All of these things are absolutely vital. Smiling at Tara there. Join SEDEX. All of those things are vital to trying to get some sense into this whole debate. But when it comes down to it, it's about the people. You saw that boy there talking about having been able to go to school for the first time as a result of being taken out of child labour. Thanks, in fact, to somebody in this room. Many thanks for that. In the report, there's some interesting and moving comments. There's one child who says, "Since I walked into this school, I've been working hard for a better tomorrow. I believe my life will be a different one because I have a strong heart. I won't give in. I will realise my dream. Sincerely, I wish you all the best with your work. And that is for all of you. That's not for us, that's for all of you. So, the last 10 years, I think, have demonstrated that solutions must be about meaningful improvements for workers. They're not about risk management. They're not about ideology. More would be better. The emphasis must be on achieving progress rather than waiting for